Welcome to Lessons from the Field, the podcast where we dig deep with restaurant industry leaders to uncover the strategies, insights, and stories behind their success. Whether it's operational excellence, guest satisfaction, or leveraging data for growth, we're here to bring you actionable lessons straight from the experts.
Welcome to this edition of our Lessons from the Field series, where we pick the brains of restaurant experts, those people that know what's going on in the restaurant industry, in the restaurant space, suppliers in this case, in the case of George. So we're really excited about this conversation. My name is Victor Fernandez. I'm Chief Insights Officer at Black Box Intelligence, and I'll be your host. So with that, I'm really excited to introduce our two panelists today. Michael Halen, he's the Senior Restaurant and Food Service Analyst for Bloomberg Intelligence. He publishes company and industry-focused research, tracking 17 publicly traded restaurant companies, as well as U.S. Foods and Cisco. And he's also the host of the Chopping It Up restaurant-focused podcast. George Calamares is currently leading the newly formed Market Research and Insights function at Libbey. He has over 2 decades of experience with global B2B and B2C Fortune 500 companies, and he specializes in helping organizations develop and implement end-user-centric strategies, products, and services. I know the focus will be suppliers of the restaurant industry, that large ecosystem that exists beyond just the restaurant operators. But before we do that, I thought it would be a good idea to start with a recap of what happened in 2024 in the restaurant space, right? We're, 13 days away from ending the year. So let me start with you, Mike. Based on all your research, all your knowledge, how would you summarize 2024 from a restaurant performance perspective?
It's been a tough year, man. It started off, with some difficult comps that we're lapping from 2013. And it recovered a bit. It recovered in fits and starts. But I'd say generally, we were in a restaurant recession. Casual dining was undoubtedly struggling this year with same-store sales. Traffic's been down across all of the segments. Quick service, who a lot of people thought was invincible after their strong performance coming out of the pandemic, struggled as well. Traffic's down in 37 out of the last 39 quarters, I think, in QSR. And so, it's been a tough year. I think mainly the issue has been low-income consumers pushing back against price hikes, right? And low-income consumers have been affected more than others by all of the inflation that they're seeing, both at the restaurant and the grocery stores, but, in their rents, in their car payments, and a litany of other things. And so that's been the biggest thing. But we've seen trade down across the board. We've seen high income and middle income consumers kind of trade down as well. So in general, in short, it's been a pretty tough year for restaurants. Thankfully, we work in an industry with a lot of resilient entrepreneurs and CEOs. And so, we're looking forward to a better 2025.
Yeah. Definitely. And I would agree, in the big context of things, not the best of years, but after coming out of the nightmare that was the pandemic and supply chain issues and all that, it felt a little bit, at least the tail end of the year is a little bit of okay, we're coming back up. We're feeling a little better and a little bit more optimistic. And we'll talk more about 2025 here in our webinar. But I totally agree with your summary in terms of what we saw this year. Hopefully we'll see a better one next year. So we'll change our focus here and start talking a little bit about what suppliers are seeing and feeling in the data and how they really use the data to be better in terms of their decisions and their performance. So I'll ask you, George, to start this conversation in terms of what do you think are the top metrics that suppliers of the restaurant industry need to be focusing on? And how are those metrics a little bit different maybe for suppliers than for other businesses out there, or are they the same metrics that all of them should be looking at? And finally, how do you track those metrics personally or at Libbey?
Well, thank you for this opportunity again. And Mike, I think, has highlighted the 2024 and 2023, at least partially. So as Libbey, our products cover a range of food service segments, right? Especially those who provide a dining experience from, the chains to the independents, hospitality, all the way to senior living. So especially when a market does not provide any organic growth, right? We're always looking for ways to grow our business. And this year we invested in a study to better understand not only what our customers are buying, which of course we can see from different data sources, but what are the motivations, right? Why restaurant operators are buying products, tabletop products, and of course trying to size the opportunity. From this work, we found out that over two-thirds of the restaurant's tabletop purchases are driven by replenishment, which that's where the traffic comes in, hence our partnership. So foot traffic definitely becomes extremely, extremely important. The other KPI that we're paying close attention to is the number of restaurants openings. Of course, if we look at the restaurant number of restaurant doors, the new doors only contribute very small percentage every year. But for the tabletop, if you think of opening a new restaurant, the orders are significantly more in terms of dollars, right, and units. So those are the key KPIs we're looking. Also, we monitor a number of other data sources, right? Because as everybody becomes more cautious about managing the inflation and the higher operational costs, right? We need to be cognizant of inventory changes and if there are any changes in the inventory strategies of our partners. Also, off-premise, we see from right after the pandemic is here to stay, right? Which we see from different chains, roughly somewhere between 20 to 25%, which of course has a direct implication to our business. Also, we're looking how many people are returning back to the office, right? Because that has direct impact to breakfast, lunch, and possibly happy hours, right? Which again has implications for our business as well. Look at sales of alcoholic beverages. And lastly, which of course all our behaviors are driven by sentiment, how good we feel or maybe not feel as good. So we monitor the consumer sentiment, but also the operator sentiment, which we try to understand and use as a leading indicator of what might be coming our way and how our industry might evolve.
Great. Yeah, definitely, a lot of challenges coming from all those different changes in the industry, right? The shift that happened over the last 5 years definitely changed things. One thing that you mentioned brought something on my mind, to my mind. We're just completing, we're starting to do our analysis for our next State of the Industry webinar. And one of the things we're looking at is that 5-year traffic patterns and how limited service is doing better than full in all of them, except for lunch. They're both kind of neck and neck there in terms of the loss in traffic, which is a lot of that, the work from home and maybe a little bit of a pullback from a consumer standpoint of, I want to save some money, so maybe I won't go out and eat at a restaurant. I'll pack something from home when I'm at work. So yeah, definitely all those different dynamics are part of what we need to be conscious of and looking at. Mike, I'll ask you the same question in terms of what do you think, you work covering US Foods and Cisco. What do you think are some of those top metrics that those guys are looking into and are tracking to monitor their performance and be better?
Yeah, I think they're looking at many of the same things George outlined. I think he did a great job of outlining it. I'll reemphasize, his comments about net unit growth. Right, that's very important to top line, and then sales and traffic are trending in the markets that they serve, and so that's why Black Box has been a great partner. That's how we track that industry wide. And I'd say the one thing I would add is that suppliers need to know the price points. They need to know what their competitors are offering. They have to be sharp in their price points in this period of e-commerce, right? E-commerce has increased transparency and made it really critical to be sharp on your price points.
Totally agree. Great insight, Mike. Thank you. So I'll return to you, George, and talk, specifically about your experience at Libbey. I thought one of the things I found interesting is that you're leading this new group, right? The consumer. Let me make sure I get it right. I got lost here in my notes. Sorry about that. The market research and insights function, right, which is relatively new. And I was thinking how like we all want to be data driven companies, and that's I think for some aspirational, for some it's kind of you're on the road to that. Some are already there. So in that journey that you guys are on, tell me a little bit about what does it mean to you to have a data driven approach as suppliers, and what are some of the challenges you're facing to become that data-driven organization?
Of course, like all organizations across the value chain, right? We all planning our full year based on different indicators, based on past performances, etc. So having more of a called real time data as possible, it enables us to assess if we're on track to our goals, if we're ahead or falling behind, and do we need to take any additional corrective actions or double down on a specific momentum that we see in a specific channel or a specific segment or customer. So it enables us to adapt and adjust to the dynamics of our bigger ecosystem. So definitely having data versus qualitative pieces of information that might be coming from a conversation that might be unique to a specific customer or to a specific region or segment. It helps us have more of a holistic point of view about the dynamics of the market, allocate our resources where we see the momentum is there, and then also provide support where we see it needs some additional help. You asked some of the challenges that we're facing. Of course, the availability of data and the granularity of the information. It's a challenge for our organization because the sophistication varies across different players within the value chain. And what I mean by the word granularity, for us, it's very difficult to know which food service channel has purchased our products and what was the motivation behind it. Is there a new hotel being opening, or is there a replenishment order? Are we doing a major remodeling, or is something, for example, is a rebranding activity? I'm referencing the hotel industry. So having that level of granularity and understanding of what are the motivations, what are the drivers behind our sales to our distributors, etc., that has been one area that we are leveraging different data points to triangulate and make some safe assumptions as to try to answer those specific questions.
Right. And I think we can all agree on the idea that there is a lot of data, maybe too much data out there, right? So I think, at least from my perspective, that part of the challenge is like distilling that to what are the critical few, and we talked a little bit about that in the previous question, right? Out of all that's there, what is the right granularity, like we were saying? What are the right data points that we need to monitor to make sure we're looking at the right things? Because there's a lot that we could be looking at it, and then it becomes that analysis paralysis kind of scenario, right? There's so much that how to even start to do something with all the information that's out there. So speaking of using it to drive success, I'll ask you, Mike, in terms of what you've seen in the marketplace, what you've seen from US Foods and Cisco, what trends or behaviors have you identified among those top suppliers, those top performing suppliers that others can learn from? What are they doing differently?
Yeah, and so you think US Foods and Cisco, and you think distributors, but half of their business in the US to independent restaurants is a supplier. They sell about billions and billions of dollars a year in private label items, right? And so their approach to private label has been to actually improve the quality. So it's not like buying a cheaper brand at Target or Walmart that's also cheaper quality. They're actually trying to improve on the products, trying to give a lower price at the same time. So innovation has been key. They both have talked a lot about value-added private label items that save on labor, right? Maybe it's pre-cut lettuce or different items like that saves time in the kitchen. On trend items, right? Things, flavors and food items that are hot and become hot in any given year. And then sustainability has been a point of emphasis for both, right? And these are boosting spending by their customers. It's improving customer retention, and it's actually improving their margins, right? And so another advantage of being such a large company is just the breadth of their product offering. You know, US Foods offers almost 10,000 private label items, right? And so they're kind of like a one-stop shop for their customers. So that scale is a pretty significant advantage for them. They've also been acquiring market share at a pretty good rate here by delivering more, just expanding their hours of service, both to their best customers, but then also to customers in high volume markets, right? Areas where there's a lot of restaurants in a small area. Think major cities, New York, Miami.
In terms of, on the day-to-day basis, like how do you use data to drive better outcomes, better performance for Libbey?
So as mentioned earlier, replenishment, right? It's a major driver for the tabletop product categories. So foot traffic, it's an extremely important metric for us. We monitor foot traffic at chains. We are in the process of creating a program, a platform where it enables us to measure traffic for independent restaurants, which we all know is so fragmented, is so diverse, depending on state, etc. But also we are monitoring foot traffic across the hospitality industry, which of course for us is not only the occupancy important, but also having those those events that drive food services, the room service as well. So all these components is something that we are monitoring very closely. And the more data we have, the better help us to be informed about the industry, better informed about our strategies, but also sharing that knowledge with our partners and both working together to create win-win conditions in a fairly challenging market.
From our perspective, from BBI perspective, what we're thinking is 2025 being a better year for restaurants than what we saw back in 2024. So we don't think 2025 is going to be, the strongest of years by any means. It's kind of that recovery year. Like we hit rock bottom sometime around July of 2024, and since then we've started to see more of an upward trend, better results for restaurants. There's some things that we still have us a little hesitant about the strength of 25. The prediction originally, of course, now new administration, new policies, we'll have to wait and we'll do some analysis here in the next couple of months in terms of what we see happening as a result. But in general, what we heard and what we saw in the research was that next year probably we're going to see a little bit more of an unemployment uptick, which we're seeing already now. Income growth, disposable income growth, as well as consumer spending growth, it's going to be a little lower than the historical average. And then we still have restaurant prices going up at a much faster rate. It has changed, and we're closing the gap in some of the recent months, but restaurant in general more expensive than grocery. So all that points to a slightly softer year than what we've had in the past, but definitely better than 24. We see a best case scenario in which we hit positive positive sales growth in 25, but we think traffic remains negative, which has been the norm. The normal rate has been about 2.5% loss in traffic when you go back 7-8 years from a same store perspective. And that's just a function of so many players in a saturated market and our prices going up by so much. George, anything else you'd like to add from a outlook perspective?
Yeah, I think 2025 will be the first year after a number of years where it's going to feel a little bit more of a normal rather than the challenges and the ups and downs we have seen from pent-up demand to trying to come against based on normal market conditions. So yeah, we are hoping that 2025 will definitely be a little bit better than 2024.
Great to to have some alignment there and some optimism, which we were seeing from operators whenever we have the conversation as well. We have a few questions that have come in, so I'm gonna ask you, George. So one says, how does Libbey stay relevant and leading in the supplier field?
Of course. So that's a great question. That's why we have a number of great professionals part of our new product development team. We're constantly looking for not only the trends within the U.S. market, restaurants, monitoring social media, because some of these trends could manifest in different segments of the food service industry. So we're constantly trying to keep pace with the evolving trends, trying to assess which ones are here to stay, which ones are here and gone tomorrow, in order to make sure that we put our bets on those trends that are here to stay and will help the organization drive forward. So we're not only looking just one segment. We look across the board, but also across multiple geographies, and trying to leverage trends that we see not only food service but at retail as well, and trying to cross-pollinate and create concepts and ideas based on different data sources and inputs.
And another interesting question here. One of the topics, I guess, the hot topics that everyone's talking about is the surge of those GLP-1 drugs, right? The weight loss drugs that everyone seems to be excited about. And of course, that has some potential implications for people that are in the food business. So from your perspective, I don't know if that's something that Libbey has looked into, has thought about, and what do you think will happen as a result from the adoption of those drugs?
To be honest, this is something that we start having the conversations as we start to look at the new orders that are coming in. Is our customers start shifting towards maybe smaller plates or glasses that maybe provide the give you the illusion that may be a much bigger quantity than what it is. So we try to understand if there is a shift in behavior through the purchases, but definitely it's an area, it's a trend that we are closely looking at, especially as it started as a trend. Now it feels is more mainstream. Yeah, and right. The availability of this drug and this solution to a lot of people, it makes us feel that this is here to stay and could potentially start seeing some implications to our category. I believe the CEO of Walmart already discussed some implications that they're seeing in their basket and their mix of products their customers are buying, and I'm sure we'll start seeing that manifesting in the food service industry as well.
Yeah. And then I have another question here. It says, kind of directed to you, George, in terms of, I asked Michael, but also for you, what do you see our leading suppliers doing differently or will do differently in 2025?
Our focus is to make sure that our products, our services, and our partnership has the restaurant operator and our partners right in the center, right? We understand that the market and the channel has been challenged, right? So we want to make sure that what we bring forward, our value propositions, are as relevant, a reflection of the challenges that they're facing, but also making sure that Libbey brings that added value to the table as a strategic partner, not just a supplier.
Yeah, thank you. Thorough answer, Mike. Great stuff. Great conversation. Thank you so much, Mike and George, for joining us today. I think the message was clear and it was very engaging for our audience. So thank you so much. And for the audience, we hope you found this discussion engaging and interesting and valuable. And we wish you a very wonderful holiday season.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Lessons from the Field. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe subscribe, rate, and leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts. It helps others like you discover the lessons and grow along with us. For more resources, insights, and behind-the-scenes content, check out Black Box Intelligence in the show notes. Until next time, keep learning, innovating, and delivering unforgettable guest experiences.